VA's Office of Blind Rehabilitation Services estimates there are approximately 130,000 veterans in the United States who are legally blind, and more than 1 million veterans who have low vision that causes a loss of ability to perform necessary daily activities. In this era of instant communication, where we get overwhelmed with data or facts that are useless to unsighted individuals, wouldn't it be great if we could count on news focused on real problems that impact the daily lives of veterans without sight? Introducing Wisdom for Blinded Veterans, an advanced informational portal designed by blind veterans specifically for blind and vision impaired vets that, like them, are facing challenges every day. Hi, my name is Ben, and I know the frustration. I've struggled in day-to-day tasks for over 20 years since I lost my eyesight. One of my biggest challenges has always been trying to stay up to date with the latest information of my eye disease, local news, and the ever-changing technology. I wanted to be able to have one single site that merged all the data scattered, and that's why we created Wisdom for Blinded Vets. This is a portal that can be accessed via the web, a smartphone app, telephone, email, text messaging, or Amazon's Alexa. It integrates with readers such as JAWS or Apple's VoiceOver and various other tools to give you a seamless experience. This portal will keep us updated on a variety of topics and will share knowledge that can help make our lives easier and more fulfilled. Highlights of the topics covered on the portal include podcasts, events, news, blind rehab and training, information on the BVA and other groups, a list of coordinator and bros list, online groups to interact with fellow vets facing the same challenges, and much more. Give us a try. You will not be disappointed. To learn more about us, visit our website www.w4bv.org. If you're interested in sharing your knowledge, please consider becoming a contributor by logging into our portal and going to the contributor section for more information. Wisdom for Blinded Veterans, transforming blind veterans' lives.
You're listening to W4TB Radio from the Wisdom for the Blind Studios in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where we share some wisdom to help you navigate the seas to stay in calm waters. Please visit us on the web at w4tb.org or drop us an email at feedback@w4tb.org. You can also download the W4TB Radio app at the Apple Store or Google Play. Please share the knowledge and tell a friend. Now, back to the show.
Have you ever wondered about your finances? About different ways that you can budget? Your credit, savings, retirement plans? If so, we've got you covered on Insight to Finance, where we dive into the fascinating world of finances and guide you through budgeting, credit, savings, and retirement plans, among other things as well. You're listening to Insight to Finance. From Wisdom for the Blind Studios in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, here's your host, Benjamin Keeley.
Alex, thank you very much, and it's always good for you to share your wisdom with us and bring us into our first episode of a brand new podcast that we're bringing out to you guys. And it's Insight to Finance, and my co-host is Chris Peterson. How you doing today, Chris?
Good, Ben. How are you?
Doing good. And I'd like to welcome you and our audience. And today's goal is to basically put together a show that just gives you a little ideas on how to manage and some of the things out there to look for in the finance area. So, Chris, welcome. Why don't you tell us a little about yourself and let the audience get to know you a little better?
Well, I'm Chris Peterson. I'm totally blind. I'm an accredited financial counselor and the founder and CEO of Penny Forward, a nonprofit organization that provides accessible financial education and counseling services to the blind community. I am a husband, a father of 2 children, a passel of pets, and also an avid reader, an athlete. I play beep baseball. I have trained Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I also play blind darts, and I'm a blind bowler. And professionally, before I switched careers and moved into personal finance, I was a software developer for 20 years, working for IBM, Lenovo, and then finally Thrivent Financial. So I've had a lot of experiences throughout my life, including experiences with blindness. I was born blind, so that's always been a part of my life and something that I've cared deeply about sharing with the world, the skills and the talents of blind people like myself, and also doing whatever I can to help our community to thrive.
Chris, thanks for sharing that with us. And I believe you and I first met at the ACB in Jacksonville. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe that's right.
It was a great time. We had booths right next to each other. That was a good show. I had an opportunity to meet a lot of people. So our goal in this podcast is each month that we share some great things with our listeners and talk about different things in finance. You think that's a good goal to get started with?
Absolutely. Money touches every aspect of our lives, and I think that it deserves a lot of careful thought and attention.
It does. And, with today's economy and everything going on, it always helps to understand the direction and get some good ideas. So sharing the wisdom is what it's all about around here. But first, you have to share some wisdom. What is blind darts?
Blind darts is the same as sighted darts, essentially. We use a talking dartboard that tells us what our score is, and we place a piece of wood on the floor at the spot where you stand to throw your darts so that you can use it to help to line yourself up straight on towards the dartboard.
Oh, that's cool. So you get yourself on the platform, and that way you know which direction you're going. Kind of like in goalball, they put different things on the floor so you know where you're at on the course, I guess. Yeah,
essentially, yeah.
Very cool. And then you did baseball too, right?
Beep baseball, which is baseball for the blind, and Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
All right. Jiu-jitsu, tell me a little bit about that. That's interesting.
So jiu-jitsu is a grappling sport. The goal is to control your opponent and submit them so they aren't able to harm you. And most of it is done on the ground. It has some similarities to things like wrestling. There are some similarities to judo, although judo is more of a throwing rather than a grappling sport. And it happens to be a very accessible sport for people who are blind because you're in such close quarters with your opponent and it's on the ground. So there's a lot that either can be or sometimes has to be done by feel, even if you're sighted. If you can imagine your opponent maybe is throwing their arm over your face to block your vision so you can't see what they're about to do. So in some cases, we actually have some advantages.
Right, because you're not going to see it anyway, so
right.
That's cool. Yeah, we had a guest last year in a podcast that had started an organization for the blind in defense. If they're at a bus stop and things like that, how to listen. So that's all very interesting stuff, and that's things that our listeners need to remember is understand your surroundings, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's very cool. So you have 2 kids. What are their ages?
I have a 13-year-old. Her name is Abby, and a 4-year-old whose name is Elliot.
Oh, very cool. So we'll share something with you. I have a 12-year-old, and her name is Abby.
Oh.
So that's always fun. Raise that age right now.
Yeah.
I'm learning stuff all the time. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's cool. Mine is in junior high. The last 2 more years in middle school. Pretty cool. Great. Well, what kind of things do you think that Joe should talk about?
Everything from basic budgeting, which is something that I think a lot of us talk about and wish we did, but very few of us actually put enough attention towards. Credit, whether you're using credit as a tool, managing your debt wisely is very important. Taxes at certain times of the year, particularly, is something that's on a lot of our minds. And we can't forget some of the government benefits that we have access to, like Social Security. And a lot of people have concerns about Medicaid and Medicare as well. So I think all of those things are really important things to cover. And finally, I would want to talk about saving and investing. I think saving and investing are really, really important and powerful tools for helping us to be resilient to the things in life that just come up and that we all have to get through.
Oh, I think with today's world, understanding all of that, is a big part of things. Understanding things that happen, like last year, we lost our bottom part of the house because of a flood. That was expenses that we weren't planning on going. And, things like that. There's always things that come up. So I think those are some great topics that we can start bringing up in episodes. What do you think about what's happening in the economy today with the interest rates being adjusted? And, where do you think we're going with that and all the fees that are being challenged now, overdraft fees and stuff like that? What do you think that direction is going to be and what the impact is going to be for the consumer?
Well, the economy goes in cycles, and it starts out with a growth phase or an acceleration phase where things are ticking along quite nicely. Often prices are rising. Often interest rates are starting to rise as things accelerate. And we often feel pretty good about that if we're investors. Often the stock market is doing really well. As consumers, though, prices are rising. It's getting financially harder for us to make ends meet. And so there's kind of a push and pull there. That eventually stalls out towards the top, and we might go into what's called a recession. And a recession starts to occur when that balance between rising prices and the economy doing really well and unemployment being low and so forth starts to catch up with itself, and prices get to be too high. People are no longer able to make ends meet. Companies are no longer to make profits, and so they start to feel the need to reset things a little bit, and people might start to lose their jobs. At the same time, interest rates are starting to go down, and we're experiencing that drop in interest rates right now. Whether we are in a recession or not is a little bit under question, and oftentimes we don't even know until after the fact. But things start to loosen up for consumers, and it gets easier to make ends meet. At the same time, people might find it harder to remain employed, and so it's not always a good time either. And again, that's cyclical. So every time that happens, eventually that balance kind of resets and things start to go back in a more positive direction. So I'm not sure where we're at right now, What I can say is that we have started to see a decrease in interest rates, and ultimately that is going to be good for the consumer. It's going to make it easier for us to borrow money. It's going to make it easier for companies to borrow money. And I think it's going to make some of that price increasing, the inflation that we were seeing over the last few years, that started to level off. So I feel like we're probably in a fairly good place right now.
So everybody in DC is like recession. They don't even say the word. It's called the R word. It's like, but everybody freaks out about that. To me, when we get into a recession, we start seeing, like you said, things start reacting. We saw the Fed drop interest rates recently. You see big block stores reducing rates, trying to be very competitive. The fast foods, 2 months ago, we did an article that the big fast foods started bringing back the Happy Meals, or the discounted meals, like McDonald's has the $5 meal now, and Taco Bell's got that. Is that all part of trying to attract the consumer to come back because they pushed away, or that part of just trying to keep that bottom line coming in?
That's exactly what it's part of. Consumers have started to drift away because prices got to be too high to eat out. It was cheaper to eat at home, and people couldn't afford to eat out. And, in cases like McDonald's, I mean, ultimately the food just isn't that good. So they have to keep prices low because people sort of expect that out of the quality of the food they're getting. So, from that perspective, it's good for all of us. I think people want to be able to eat out. They want to be able to treat their kids. They don't like it that they can't afford these things, and so when these things start to become affordable, they jump on it. And we'll see that in other areas of the economy as well. You mentioned the big box stores. You see that with things like TVs and stereos and computers and stuff too, and sometimes on different cycles. Some of the things that you see all the time is, it used to be one or two sales. You got the after Thanksgiving sale, and then you got this. Now it's like you got a sale for this, you got a sale for that. It's Black Sunday, Black Friday, Black Monday, Black Tuesday. It's all these things that they're just trying to attract people. And me personally, I'd rather just go online and order the stuff and not have to worry about driving all the way out there and wasting the power and the gas and all of that stuff. And I just, I think that the consumer is getting a little smarter and dealing with all that. I don't know about you, with the two kids, just my wife and my daughter and I, we go to McDonald's, or we went, we had Girl Scouts the other day, and we went out right next to the Girl Scout meeting is a little deli. And we went and we got 2 tuna fish sandwiches and 2 drinks, and the bill was $75. It's like, it's getting crazy to eat out, and, to be able to, imagine, doing that. Or you go to, Orlando and go to an amusement park over there, and you got to mortgage the house. It's something's going to have to happen. Exactly. And first of all, I never encourage people to buy money, or I never encourage people to buy things because they're on sale. Like you say, there's sales going on every single week, all the time, and that's not going to stop. So I encourage people to stick to their budget. If your budget says that you can afford $75 to spend on going to the deli and getting a couple of tuna fish sandwiches, then by all means, spend the $75. If your budget says you can't afford that, then your budget doesn't lie. It's all math. It's all numbers. And it's one of the hardest things for any of us to do. But sometimes we have to say no, or sometimes we have to say, not today.
So that goes back to the need versus want.
Exactly.
Need versus want. I learned that. Pretty good. Hey, it's about time for us to check in with the studio and get some PSA announcements away. But I think you brought up a good subject. How about we talk about budgets when we come back?
Sounds good.
All right. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Chris and Ben on the Insight to Finance show, and we're coming to you from the Fort Lauderdale, Florida Wisdom for the Blind Studios, and we'll be right back.
Wisdom for the Blind is dedicated to doing everything we can for the blind and sight impaired. If you'd like to bless us with a donation to keep the website, the podcast, the webinars, and the radio station operating, we can't express how grateful we'd be. You can go to the website at w4tb.org. That's4tb.org, and hit the donation button. Or you can mail it to Wisdom for the Blind Incorporated. Attention donations. 1005 Marine Mile Boulevard, Suite 255, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 33315. Wisdom for the Blind is a not-for-profit 501c3 organization. Remember, it's tax deductible. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts at Wisdom for the Blind.
Looking for a fitness app that is accessible for the blind? Well, look no further. Revision Fitness is just what the trainer ordered. This audio and text-based fitness program has a wide selection of fitness options, including cardio, strength, yoga, balance, flexibility, and even progressive relaxation sessions. Download Revision Fitness on the App Store or Google Play, or visit revisionfitnessapp.com and get a free 14-day trial for new users. Find your fit with Revision Fitness. And as always,
Revision Fitness.
Let's change the way we look at it.
You're listening to W4TB Radio from the Wisdom for the Blind Studios in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where we share some wisdom to help you navigate the seas to stay in calm waters. Please visit us on the web at w4tb.org or drop us an email at feedback@w4tb.org. You can also download the W4TB radio app at the Apple Store or Google Play. Please share the knowledge and tell a friend. Now, back to the show.
Hey guys, thanks for coming back. This is Chris and Ben with the Insight to Finance, and we're coming to you from the Fort Lauderdale Wisdom for the Blind Studios. Hey Chris, before we left, we were going to jump into budgets. What is a budget, and where do you start?
Well, a budget is a spending plan. It's as simple as that. It's a set of categories or buckets, if you will, that you divide your available money into so that you plan to spend that money according to the things first that you need, and then you prioritize the things that you want. To get started, it's really important to start keeping track of what you're spending today. I never advise people to start a budget that is drastically different from the way that they spend money today. It is far more effective, and you'll stick to it more if you make gradual changes to your budget over time so that you get used to living the lifestyle that may entail. Once you've tracked your spending for a month or two, or maybe more, and it gets to be easy to do this with online banking these days, where you can sometimes download your bank transactions going back years if you want to, then it's important to come up with a set of categories for your money to fall into. Housing, of course, is a big one for most of us, followed by utilities. It's not fun to live in a house without running water or electricity or heat or air conditioning, depending on where you live. Groceries and personal care items are another category that I think is important to fit in. I tend not to separate the two, though, because we tend to buy groceries and personal care items at roughly the same time. So maybe call it something like groceries and personal care. And then there might be something for transportation, something for entertainment. You may even divide entertainment into multiple categories. If you feel that it's important to eat out at restaurants a certain amount of the time, or to go to concerts, and you want to prioritize those separately, then by all means do so. The number of categories doesn't matter too much, as doesn't the names of the categories. They need to make sense in your life, and they need to reflect the things that you need to spend money on, followed by the things that you want to spend money on.
It goes back to the wants and the needs, right?
Very much. So once you've identified those categories, go back to the tracking that you did and figure out, how much do I spend on housing? How much do I normally spend on utilities? How much do I normally spend on groceries and personal care, transportation, etc.? Plug those numbers in as they are today, and then start to adjust the ones that are less important to you, and allocate money, maybe if it's necessary, to the items that are more important to you. If you feel like, after looking at how much you spend on groceries, like, gosh, I just don't like that I'm spending this much, figure out how to cut that back. Maybe not all at once, but maybe $25, $50 a month until you get it into a range that you feel good about. May not be possible to get it to where you feel good about. Prices are prices, and you can shop around and you can choose to buy things or to not buy things in order to make ends meet. But sometimes prices are prices, and if you want something badly enough, you may decide to allocate the money for it.
I've always thought that budgets were a good way, because it makes you focus on what you're spending. I thought as I was growing up that if you just live without a budget, then you just spend, and then what happens is you're putting it on the credit card, and then the credit card comes and I'll pay this next month, and then the interest drops in, and then you start getting yourself down and down and down into the hole.
And that's the key. That's the key. I've worked with a number of clients who I'll ask them, what do you pay for electricity each month? And they have no idea. And at the very least, there's a different people have different levels of rigor that they put towards this. But you are never going to regret that you know where your money is going.
I think that's the important thing, is to be able to identify the whole 9 yards and understand where all of that is. And I find that to be, very important. I also find that that setting that goal, especially like on shopping for groceries and stuff like that, once you start tracking it, then you realize, oh, wait a second, I'm buying, more than I need. I don't need to buy this. I don't need to buy that. And I learned one thing: never go to the grocery store with an empty stomach.
Absolutely not.
My grocery bill goes from $100 or $200 to $300, $400. So
yeah.
But I think all those buckets are important, and I also think it's important to sit down with your significant other and make sure that the budget is together, not just one person. And that way, when you yell at the kids, "Hey, turn those lights off," the spouse understands, hey, yeah, the bill went up $45. We understand.
Right. And depending on their ages and how comfortable you are, it may be important to fill your kids in on some of this stuff. One of the reasons that a lot of kids get into trouble when they move out on their own is they have no idea what things cost or how to keep track of their spending. And so keeping track of that and involving your kids in that process can really be helpful to them, not only because it can help them understand why you might be telling them to turn the lights off, but it can be helpful to them when they need to move out on their own and understand some of these costs and the trade-offs that you need to make.
And educating, the youngsters on budgets is important because, I've talked to some kids and they don't even know what the concept of money is. It doesn't matter. Mom's going to get it, and, understanding that only so much comes in, and when only so much comes in, so much comes out.
That's right.
I'm a believer in, having the categories. Do you feel the categories are important, like house, insurance, or do you just think, one bucket for household, one bucket for food, one household for medical, or do you you're very granular? What do you think?
I myself am kind of middle of the road. There are people that are very detail oriented and like to be very granular. And I encourage, and I respect those people. They may be better at budgeting than I am, in fact, because they're so granular. I also know that there are people that are a lot less granular about it. There's something called the 50-30-20 budget, or the 50-20-30 budget, which essentially says you spend 50% on your needs, 30% on your wants, and 20% on savings. And some people find that it is very effective to be just that granular and no more.
And I think that's, like you said, it's all up to what you're used to. If you make this big old budget and you're not basically going into the whole detail, if it's too big, you're not going to use it. So I agree with basically stating that it's important to get something that you're going to use. So I think that's important. What we're going to do is we're going to check in with the studio again, and then we're going to get right back and continue our thing on budget. So, Chris, you'll stick with us, I hope. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back. This is Chris and Ben for Insight to Finance, and we're at the Wisdom for the Blind Studios in sunny Fort Lauderdale, Florida. We'll be right back. Stick with us.
Do you enjoy a good read? Or do you enjoy sharing new books with friends? Then join us on the second Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Wisdom Books, a virtual book club just for the blind or visually impaired. You can also hear a pre-recorded episode on Wisdom Radio every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. For more information, go to w4tb.org. and click the link Wisdom Books for more information. And please don't forget to share the wisdom.
Veterans deserve as much help as they can get. They put their lives on the line for their country, and yet there's still an ongoing mental health crisis among military veterans that needs to be addressed. Well, if you're a veteran who wants the support of fellow veterans and to support fellow veterans, join Wisdom for the Blind's Cup of Joe virtual coffee and chat. It's low-key, fun, and gives veterans an outlet to talk with others who fully understand what they're going through. Get connected at Wisdom for the Blind's website, w4tb.org/cupofjoe.
You're listening to W4TB Radio from the Wisdom for the Blind Studios in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where we share some wisdom to help you navigate the seas to stay in calm waters. Please visit us on the web at w4tb.org or drop us an email at feedback@w4tb.org. You can also download the W4TB radio app at the Apple Store or Google Play. Please share the knowledge and tell a friend. Now, back to the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for coming back. This is Chris and Ben, Insight to Finance, and we're here in the sunny studios of Fort Lauderdale, Florida for Wisdom for the Blind. Hey, Chris, before we left, we were talking about the buckets and the budget and all of that good stuff. What do you think when you're setting up that budget? Should you put in there a savings plan for like college funds and medical reserves and stuff like that?
Absolutely. The number one thing, though, that I want to stress is first, you should take care of yourself. And by taking care of yourself, I mean looking at your present and your future. It doesn't make sense in my mind to start saving for your kids' college if you haven't first been saving for your own retirement. And not just retirement, but let's face it, as people who have blindness or low vision, if we were to lose a job, it may mean that we are unemployed for longer than the average person. It's not always true, but it can be. And so it behooves us, I think, to set aside savings to account for things like that. Now, having said that, you can get to a point where you have essentially saved enough for retirement, and interest is going to carry you the rest of the way. This is much more helpful if you start early. So, if you save in your 20s and you maybe have $500,000 in a retirement savings account by the time you are 30, that could turn into, just with interest alone, it could turn into $4 or $5 million by the time you're 70. So you might be able to reduce the amount that you save towards retirement and redirect that then towards kids' college funds and stuff. And remember that even if you don't save enough to fully cover something like your kids' college, you're helping. You're reducing the amount that you might need to borrow, or the amount you might need to look for in scholarships, etc. And so every little bit helps there. Medical is another one that many of us don't think of until we're sick. There is something called a health savings account that if we're not sick, I advise everybody to contribute to. It is a great tool for saving, because if you withdraw from it before your retirement age, you can use that money to cover unforeseen medical expenses, or even some foreseen ones if you want to. I've used it sparingly in my case to cover things like co-pays for office visits and stuff. When you get to be retirement age, though, you have a lot more flexibility in how you can spend that money. It still behooves you to save it for healthcare, because we tend to need more medical care, and medical care tends to get more expensive when we are retired. However, it can also be used for other expenses in the event that you don't need it for healthcare after retirement age.
Isn't there two different types of health plans? One that doesn't roll over and one that does?
Yeah, what you're referring to is called a flexible spending account. That's the one that doesn't roll over. That is something that is really a way to avoid paying some in taxes. You can put a little bit of money aside, and you can use that throughout the year to pay your co-pays, or pay for a new pair of glasses, or for, oftentimes non-prescription items even. Whereas a health savings account is something that persists throughout your entire life. And so it's, if you're going to use one of the two, the health savings account is by far the more powerful of the two.
Basically we use both. We use the flexible account for pharmaceutical and co-pays, etc., and then the catastrophe savings account is for major surgeries or something like that occurs. When you're laying your budget, Chris, is there a formula, like, say you make $1,000 a month? Is there a rule of thumb saying that your mortgage shouldn't be more than 1/3, 1/2, 1/4? So you're kind of like, what your intake is, and your outtake, your output needs to be balanced. Is there a formula for that, or a rule of thumb?
There are some rules of thumb, particularly when it comes to housing. And it varies a little bit based on how aggressive or conservative you are or the person that you're asking is. But in general, mortgage shouldn't cost you more than about 30% of your take-home pay. So about 1/3. Some people would say that it should cost less than that, 25% of your take-home pay. Some people will say, well, yeah, you could actually get away with a little bit more. And all of that is probably true, depending on your situation. If you, for example, have really low transportation costs, you may be able to afford more towards a mortgage. And it may actually be more expensive to live in a location where you have very few transportation costs, like somewhere that, has access to good public transportation that runs often and all hours of the day. So I like the rules of thumb. They can help us to budget, but I really think it's important for us to think about our particular situation and to make sure that we allocate our money according to our personal situation rather than to rules of thumb or averages or whatever the Joneses next door are doing.
And with that being said, so we say that 30% out of the 1,000 is going to be dedicated to the mortgage. And the mortgage, are you also talking about the property insurance and the taxes?
Yes.
All that fall into one bucket there?
Yes.
And then from there, so I would say the importance, if I was working on a budget, and please tell me if I'm right or wrong, housing would be number one, utilities would be number two, and then food. And then it would get into eating out, our expenses for the, education, things like that. But wouldn't you would say that the utilities would be next and then food and then go from there?
That is the way that I run my budget. I have trouble foreseeing how utilities would not be next, but that there may be people that are fine with having the electricity shut off and would be more concerned about spending money on food and groceries than utilities. And certainly, transportation is a big deal too, especially if you have to use it to get to and from work. Many people prioritize their car or their transportation very highly because they're afraid of not being able to make money if they don't have good transportation.
I think transportation is important. The other thing that I think that we should keep an eye out when we're setting the budget is on transportation. It's not just the car loan. That you got the insurance and the gasoline and the tolls and the maintenance, and people forget those things.
Yep. And Uber and Lyft are more expensive than owning a car.
Yes, except in our situations, that becomes a a means of getting around sometimes. So you have to plan for all of that.
Exactly.
But there are programs out there for the blind and the vision impaired that could assist in transportation, especially to work. There's all kinds of programs available for that.
There are, depending on where you live.
That's a true statement.
Yeah, it's very much dependent on where you live.
But you need to, look into your situation and find that out. What do you think? So I make $1,000. I did my budget. My budget's $1,100. Do I put that extra $100 on a credit card, or do I try and cut back, or do I find another part-time job?
Ideally, I would say try to find another job or find a way to make that extra $100.
Putting it on the credit card opens up other problems.
It creates problems, and cutting back, first of all, you can only do that so far before it either makes you miserable or there's just nothing to cut anymore. I think we all could stand to be more ambitious in life. And, I agree with the sentiment that we should be grateful for what we have and what we're blessed with. the best way to increase your income statistically is to seek another job. People tend to, on average, have pay increases of 10 to 15% when changing jobs, as opposed to just waiting for a pay raise from your current employer, or waiting for your next promotion, which may come, every 5 to 10 years, and you may only increase that. You may only get that pay increase of say 2 to 3% for inflation. So always be ready to change jobs. Always be looking, and always know what you're worth.
Well, I agree with you. And Chris, we're going to wrap it up and run over to the studio. But for our first show, we talked about budgets and got to know a little bit about you. Anything that you think we should talk about before we wrap it up?
I would like to encourage people to drill into this more. The organization I run, Penny Forward, provides a lot of information about budgeting and much more through our website at pennyforward.com. And so I would like to encourage people to check that out, or give us a call at 888-332-5558. And I look forward to coming back on and talking much more about other personal finance related topics in the future.
Well, I appreciate that. And remember, if you have any questions or anything that you'd like to ask, please feel free to send your emails to info@w4tb.org. That's info@w4tb.org. And Chris and I will look at those, and on our next show, we'll talk to you about that. But we're going to run it to the studio. Chris, thanks for sitting in today, and look forward to our next issue. And we're going to pick up another topic other than budgets, and maybe talk about retirements or all kinds of different things. So I hope our audience will check back with us. And right now we're going to throw it to the studio and talk with them and see what's going on. And we'll be back after that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. We'll be right back.
Thank you, Ben. And to our listeners, thank you for dropping in today to listen to Insight to Finance with our host Benjamin Keeley. As the Oakland Athletics won their final home game against the Texas Rangers at the Coliseum on Thursday, September 26, the organization says goodbye to Oakland after being rooted there since 1968. The team announced in April that they would be making a temporary move next season to Sutter Health Park for at least 3 years. Sutter Health Park is currently home to the San Francisco Giants and the Sacramento River Cats. The Oakland Athletics will eventually be moving to Las Vegas after their new stadium is built. From ticket prices, to playing on artificial turf, this MLB organization is making a big move. In our next story, the automobile company, Ford, is working with the Scottish company, Series Holographics, to implement head-up displays, also called HUDs, in their vehicles. Head-up displays display useful information, such as speed and turn-by-turn directions on the lower part of the vehicle's windshield, where it can be seen without the driver taking their eyes off of the road. Series Holographics is ensuring that Ford drivers have a safer experience while driving Ford vehicles. In our last story, there is an experience so common that we all experience, but do not realize we are experiencing. And that is money dysmorphia. Money dysmorphia occurs when you have a warped or distorted view of your finances. You tend to see your financial situation much differently from what your reality is. And money dysmorphia can be caused by money trauma, societal pressures, economic crisis, or even your childhood upbringing. This is most common amongst millennials and Gen Zers. Money dysmorphia can affect anyone, no matter how much money is in your bank account. A Credit Karma survey found that 29% of Americans actually experience money dysmorphia. Money dysmorphia creates pressures of having to keep up, which causes some people to feel feelings of worthlessness and actually financially sets them back. My name is Ellie from the Wisdom for the Blind Studio. Thank you to our listeners and the Wisdom for the Blind Studio. Now back to you, Ben.
Thousands of brave men and women who served in the United States Armed Forces have given their eyesight in defense of our freedom. And the Blinded Veterans Association wants to give them their freedom back. But it needs your help. Go to BVA.org to find out about how BVA's free programs, services, advocacy, and more help America's heroes to not just deal with the emotional and physical issues of sudden sight loss or impairment, but actually work to get them back to the independent lives they deserve to live. Go to BVA.org today.
96 years old, but the stories that he told were like something from a Hollywood movie.
Hi, this is Mike Byer, retired Army First Sergeant and Executive Director for Operation Song. Do you love a good story and great music? Then head over to the App Store or Google Play and download our Operation Song app. The Operation Song app is filled with patriotic songs and videos containing the stories of our nation's heroes. You can also see more great content on our YouTube page, and don't forget to like us on social media.
A torpedo hit his ship, and to this day still lives with the fact his buddies died, but somehow he survived.
You're listening to W4TB Radio from the Wisdom for the Blind Studios in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where we share some wisdom to help you navigate the seas to stay in calm waters. Please visit us on the web at w4tb.org or drop us an email at feedback@w4tb.org. You can also download the W4TB radio app at the Apple Store or Google Play. Please share the knowledge and tell a friend. Now, back to the show.
Allie, you guys do a great job in the studio. Thanks for bringing us up to date with the latest news and stuff like that. I appreciate it. And, you know, once again, you guys do very good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you sitting into our first episode of Insight to Finance with Chris Peterson and myself, Ben. And we hope that you'll join us in the future. One of the things, our next episode, we're going to talk a little bit about credit, and I think that's going to be another good show. Remember that we just also launched another podcast called Insight to the Eye, and that is pretty awesome. We talk about a different eye disease every single episode, so check that out. And remember, we have a lot of things going on. We got the insight to fitness, insight to travel, all kinds of different things. And if you're a veteran, we also have insight to the VA. So the Insight series is pretty awesome. Please check it out. And remember to like and share the wisdom with a friend. Let everybody know that we exist. And if you want to reach us, you can get us at 954-WISDOM and the number 4. And we'll be glad to talk with you if you have any questions. Once again, this is Ben and Chris. We're coming to you from the Fort Lauderdale Wisdom for the Blind Studios. And I really appreciate you coming to our first episode of Insight to Finance. And I hope you'll come back next month's episode, and we're going to be talking about credit. You guys have a great day. Remember, be kind to everybody. And I'd like to thank Bree for being a great engineer and producer. She always keeps us honest and makes us look good. So thanks, Bree, for your hard work. And everybody, thanks for joining us. We'll be back next month with Insight to Finance, and we'll talk about credit. Good day.
Hi, I'm Christina Hepner.
And I'm Leslie Hoskins, and we're hosts of the Taking the Lead podcast from Leader Dogs for the Blind.
Our podcast provides insight into the blindness community and impactful stories from our clients.
At Leader Dog, we continue to be the answer for thousands who need our free services. These include guide dog training, white cane training, and more. Once clients complete training, they're reintroduced to a life of safety and independence.
Learn more at leaderdog.org.
Are you a big geek? Do you enjoy learning about new technology? Then join us on the fourth Thursday of every month for the Wisdom Geek Club at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can also hear a pre-recorded episode on Wisdom Radio every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. For more information, hit up w4tb.org and click on the Geek Club button on the main page. And don't forget to share the wisdom with a friend.
You've been listening to Insight to Finance, produced by Wisdom for the Blind and VNS Productions, a division of VNS International. Everybody should carry knowledge about their finances and how to prepare for the future. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure you like, rate, and review, and we'll be back soon. Until then, visit our website at w4tb.org. Don't forget to share the wisdom and tell a friend.